I'm never, and we're recording now. Welcome, Johnny. And we're just a little early, but not too early. We're gonna hopefully we'll have people
Monet,
drop
and
in.
then we've
And
got Natalie. So let me let them in.
yeah,
Awesome.
great.
It's a party.
It's a party, and welcome everyone, and to those, and we know a lot of people can't necessarily fit this in, but maybe watching at a later date, so that's great. So just want to welcome those who are present and in the moment, and those who are in the future moment. So exciting to have everyone here today.
Yeah.
What was I just thinking or saying? Oh, yeah, I was going to ask just a little technical question here, but it's good for us all to learn together. But we obviously share a presentation and slides, and I can't necessarily see the viewer's view of what they're seeing. So, and Jamie, you be able to probably answer this question for me. So when I share slides, it removes everybody from your screen, like you've got a full screen setup, so you can't see any of the participants, or can you still see
No. You see
participants?
like like one of those like either up top or on the side.
Yeah, okay,
So
good. Yeah, because I've
yeah,
been in meetings with both, and most
yeah.
of them usually on Zoom. I think some people have it set up where they can block them completely, but most of the time I see along the top, and then you can scroll. You get, I don't know, four or five, depending on how big your screen is. You get a few along the top.
The
Anyhow,
difficulty is
let's
when I
dive
go
in.
to
We got a lot to
render.
cover today. I'm gonna go fast and furious
Okay.
as always. So it's a pleasure to have everybody here, and please, come play with us. Be a participant, not just a spectator. And with that in mind, give me a one or a thumbs up or a yay or a hey or whatever you want in the chat, just to let me know that you're hearing us and Jamie and I, and you can see us, and we'll get you used to being interactive here. So go ahead and just find the chat. Should be at the bottom of the bar there. Click on that, little
Yep.
window will open. There
Got a
we go.
thumbs
I've got
up.
a thumbs up. I hear you loud and clear. Woohoo! This is
Okay.
great.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I'm going to go ahead and share slides, and let me do that. And then you can give me some more feedback just to confirm that you can see the slides that I'm putting up here. So again, if you give me a
Yes.
one or a thumbs up or a happy face or whatever you're so inclined to do, and let me know if you can see the slides all right. Great.
Yes.
Okay, we've got some feedback coming in. Awesome. As always, the chat is there for you to throw in, ideas, thoughts, contribute to the topic, ask questions, and we'll be monitoring those. I will wait an appropriate time probably to address them. So usually addressing things in lumps so that we don't kind of break the flow of what we're talking about. But put them in there because it's best to get them out of your brain as they pop up, then rather than waiting till the end because you may forget them. So that's kind of how the brain works, and that's how our chat works. So, and I'm going to ask you some questions. So I want you to continue to play with me in the sandbox here. So here's a quote for you. The 80-20 principle applied to business has one key theme: to generate the most amount of money with the least expenditure of assets and effort. So this is a powerful, powerful concept. And that's by Richard Koch. And if you're not familiar with the book, there's a couple of them out there. But he wrote a book on the 80-20 as it applies to business. And then I think he did a follow-up version as it applies to life. But highly recommended read, would really encourage you to do that. And you'll see why in a minute as we get further into this particular topic. So let's talk about this and what we're going to cover today. So we're going to cover the 80-20. So we're going to talk about it as a concept and how it applies really to all areas of your life. The reality is there's an imbalance between cause and results, input and output, effort and rewards. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how 20% of your effort is actually responsible for 80% of your results. So that's really important. A lot of people know that, kind of give that lip service. It's hanging out here. But what I want to do is show you how you can take that and turn it on its head. So 80% of what you achieve will come from just 20% of your time. So isn't that an amazing thing? Think about it. If you could figure this out, and that's why I'm going to give you the tools to do that, then you could literally cut out 80% of the time that you're currently working. and focus just on that 20%. Wouldn't that be a bizarre concept? Isn't that a bizarre concept? I don't know what the math is, but it's kind of like, I don't know, I'm going to ballpark here. It'd be like if you're working an 8-hour day, it would be working just 2 hours of those days is approximately where you're being productive. Is that 20%, by the way? Is 2 out of 8 20%? No, it would be 25%. So less than 2. So it'd be like an hour and 33 minutes, maybe, if I got my math right. So you'd work only an hour and 33 minutes of your day is actually producing 80% of your output of your results. That's incredible, isn't it? Anyhow, I digress, or I get off topic, because we're going to go into that. As always, stick around. We're going to bait you and tempt you and give you a bribe to listen all the way through so that you get this information. It's important because any idea, any concept that you're considering needs to be put into context. And what do I mean by that? Well, we're here to talk about business, building a coaching business. So when we talk about context, we talk about where does this fit into the strategy, the bigger picture of what I'm trying to achieve here. So we always want to hang in till the end so that we can then find a way, and hopefully Jamie and I help you put that into context to know how that's going to work. And I'm usually pretty specific with this, with giving you some action steps to take. So stick around, and the reason to stick around too, if nothing else, is just to find out what the gift is at the end that we're going to give you. So please be with us. So let me ask you this question, and again, I'll ask you to participate with me. Do you often feel like you're putting in far more effort than the results you're getting, that the results demonstrate that you're getting? Type yes in the chat if that's you. Do you often feel like you're just putting it in, you're pounding and you're pounding, and you go, oh, I'm just not seeing anything come out the other end, or I'm seeing a little bit come out the other end?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeses.
I appreciate you participating. So we're getting, I'm finally got my screens organized where I can actually see at least some of the chat. I can't see it all because I've got too many things going on here, but I can see some yups and some yeses and some happy faces here. So what is this thing called the 80-20 principle? And most people are aware of it now, but I want to put this in a new light. And I also want to kind of move this to the top of your consciousness so that you become aware of it in your life. It all begins with awareness. Monet, you know about this particularly because you and I have chatted about the first step of anything, any change, any behavior that we want to adopt or anything we want to achieve is awareness, is this idea. One of my mentors used to, he'd say, call it noticing for. So just noticing what's going on in your life then puts your brain in an active mode, an excitatory state, we call that, where now you're starting to be aware of what's going on. So, and more that'll come in, and then that's how you start to work with things. So why is this important? Because it's counterintuitive. We're kind of trained to expect that causes will basically be roughly the same as what we put in. So input 50, get 50 back out again. And this is a problem because it's just not reality. This is a fallacy, if you will. And it's one of the most inaccurate and harmful ways to see the world. So we really need to be aware of this. So it's a benchmark for this imbalance, this catchphrase. And it's important to kind of think about it this way. We call it the 80-20 rule or principle, or the Pareto principle. And I'll tell you why in a minute, why it's called that. But it's not always that way. The idea that I want to get across here is that there's an imbalance. And sometimes it's 80-20, sometimes it's 95-5, sometimes it's 99-1. So it can be that big. So there's the important part here is it's a very large to a very small. So we want to be aware of that and don't get hung up on the number itself. The typical pattern will show, if you average everything out, that 80% of output actually results from 20% of input. So therefore, 80% of consequences flow from 20% of causes, or that 80% of results come from 20% of your effort. So the 80-20 principle, it asserts that when two sets of data relating to causes or results can be analyzed, the most likely result is that there will be a pattern of imbalance. And quite often we're quite surprised at that. And I'm going to share some stuff that you may have heard of in a minute, but you may even find some surprises in some of the data that I'm going to share with you. But and let me see if I've got one more point here, which I think I do. So the idea that a minority of causes and inputs and effort actually lead to the majority of what you're going to get out of it. You and your business, and this is a key thing, can obtain much better results with much less effort, expense, and investment if you figure this out and if you start to become consciously aware of it. And it never ends, by the way, so you're always looking for it. So my slides aren't quite syncing here the way I want them to, but that's okay. You see a couple pictures on here. I'll just jump ahead. So what's the background of this? Well, it was first discovered by this Italian economist called Vilfredo Pareto in 1897. And that's why we sometimes refer to it, or you'll hear it referred to as the Pareto principle. But what he noticed was that 80% of the wealth and income in Italy, and he looked around the world too, was held by 20% of the population. And then he started to look around at different countries and he found that this was true. So he was doing this and looking at these numbers. Then he just kind of fell off the face of the earth. You didn't really hear any more from him. And then along comes this new guy. And it resurfaced in 1951. Think about that, 1897, and it just kind of got lost, got forgotten. And then in 1951, this quality guru named Joseph Juran came up with this idea. He called it the rule of the vital few. And what he was talking about was the 80-20 rule. Now, his purpose, he was looking at quality. So he was looking at how can problems be eliminated quickly and cheaply by focusing on the vital few problems. You'll also hear me sometimes talk about constraint theory. That's the next evolution of this. If you want to get into some fascinating stuff, start looking at constraints and the theory of constraints, because that's another thing that follows this whole principle, the idea that we're always looking at the wrong thing. We think the bottleneck is here, but in fact, it's over here. And when we can release that bottleneck, all of a sudden, everything just starts to work. So it's this vital few that we want to focus on, the vital few problems. And then he talked about and coined this phrase, the trivial many. And you may have heard this before too, this phrasing is that the trivial many. So what do? We spend all of our time focusing on the trivial many, and we give lip service, or we don't even pay attention to the vital few. And that's a problem. And here's why this is important, because it's counterintuitive. We don't realize this is going on because we've kind of been trained to believe that everything is 50-50. And I kind of talked about this before. It's a fallacy, and it really is harmful to the way we think. And what it causes is it causes us to get caught in this whole concept of busy work. Where we're just putting out, we're putting out, and we feel like, oh, I spent 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours in front of the screen. I must have accomplished something. Surely I was productive. And that's not reality at all. The 80-20 principle asserts, and I went through this before, so I'm kind of duplicating my thinking here, but this is why it's so important. And I want to hit home on this again, and I'm repeating myself. You and your business can obtain much better results with much less effort, expense, or investment. Jamie and I went through this and I know I've got a blank screen because I'm going to go a little off topic here for a minute. But as we refined and looked at our process, when we were looking at what is now the 90-day process, it was more like a year. And as we looked at it more and more, and we started to, and we continually do this, we continue to look at what are the vital few things? What's the 80-20 rule? How does it apply to this? And we're still doing that to this day. We will continue to change things, and we may even remove big chunks and put in more chunks that are even more focused on the 80-20, because that's our goal, if you will, is to get as much as we can out of this for you. That's our goal. That's our job, if you will. So why does this matter? Well, number one, increase productivity. The 80-20 rule helps you identify and prioritize the most important tasks and activities, leading to more effective use of your time and resources. And before I finish today, I'm going to give you how to do that. I'm going to give you the how-to of that. So this isn't just something that you can think about. It's something I'm going to give you an assignment to do. And I'll tell you how specifically. Improve profitability by focusing on the 20% of the products or the customers or the services that businesses have. And this is very general, that drive 80% of the results. You can increase your profits and growth. So this relates to, Jamie and I talk about this all the time, and you'll hear us talk about this, is stop chasing. Here's what happens in our business is, and this is a direct application of the 80-20 rule, is we tend to spend 80% of our time, energy, effort, and money chasing people who really aren't interested or who aren't ready for the solution that we offer. And we forget about the 10 or 20% that do. So stop chasing. There's a great book, and we recommend that book. What's it called again, Jamie? It's called Don't Chase.
Experts never chase.
Experts never chase. What's an expert? An expert is somebody who understands the 80-20 rule and really applies it. So instead, focus your energy. And what do we do? Like, we're programmed to this too. You think about, we also talk, there's a little model that I use, and Jamie's familiar. She'll laugh at this, but it's learning to love the nose, learning to love the nose. So like, if we do the numbers, we go, okay, if I have 10 people, I'm speaking to 10 people, and one person is going to say yes, that means that there's going to be 9 no's in that equation. So where's the volume in that? And if I put $1 to that, let's say that each of those people is worth, let's say, $10. So that's $100 in that 10. So where's the real money? In the yeses or in the nos? Play with me here. Where's the real money? Go ahead, play with me by putting a number in the chat. Where's the real money? Think about this. I'm trying to get your brains working here. We got 10 people. 1 says yes, 9 say no. They're all worth $10. Where's the real money? No, it's in the no's. Those no's are worth $90 to me. The yes is worth 10. Johnny's probably heard this example before because he's our resident sales guru. But you see, the idea is that I can only get to that yes when I go through the no's. So if I apply the 80-20 rule to this and think about this, that's where we want to put our energy, right? We want to go through that. And then, but what does our brain do? It goes, oh, I had a terrible day. Well, what happened, honey? Well, 9 people said no. Oh, and why is that terrible? Oh, you wouldn't believe, they beat up on me. They told me I was charging too much. They were saying, how do you prove this? How do you get off saying that you've got a solution, right? All this, they just beat me up all day long. And then, well, but honey, you said that 9, but you talked to 10 people. What about the 10th person? Oh yeah, they said yes and they signed up. We do that, don't we? Or we put something out on, we put a post out on Facebook or LinkedIn or something, and we get all of this feedback coming in. And then down somewhere in the mix comes this troll that comes along and says, you're an idiot. None of this applies. Go get a real job. What do we spend the rest of our time doing? Ruminating over that one comment when 90%, 80, 90% of the comments were great. Get the idea of where we go. So that's why it's important that we become aware of this, because we have to fight it. We have to become aware in order to fight and resist that tendency to focus on the wrong side of the equation. So it creates better decision-making. The 80-20 rule provides a framework for understanding the relative importance of different factors in your business, enabling you to make better data-driven decisions. So in short, the 80-20 rule and applying it can help you make better decisions to streamline your operations, to achieve your goals more efficiently, quicker, faster, more effectively. This is what the 80-20 rule is all about. So let me ask you this. Have you noticed that usually you don't get back what you put in? That sometimes you get very much less and sometimes you get very much more? Have you noticed that? You notice that sometimes you have a day where you kind of do one thing and it's like, holy cow, it just explodes, and you just feel so gratified by that one thing, and it only took up a little bit of time, and you go, that was an amazing day. And then another day you slug it out and you just don't seem to see any results. This is the 80-20 rule happening. It's the 80-20 rule playing with you and toying with you. Sorry.
It's, if I may jump in, it's kind of like, you know, having your calendar filled up with people and consults and all of that. And then you find that you're speaking to people who just, you know, they're just not the fit. And so then your whole day is just taken up with that. If you just put the people on your calendar who were really interested and really are ready.
Yeah. And this is why we hit home so much on the avatar or your audience, because the better you can get at finding and speaking to the right people, the less you're going to be drained, the less of your energy is going to be put into speaking to the wrong people. There are lots of people out there that are starving and hungry for the solutions that you have to offer. Don't get sucked into the idea that, oh, it's really competitive, or nobody wants what I have to offer, or it's saturated. It's all bunk. It's bull. It's not reality. Okay, let's run through this real quick. Inputs are not equal to outputs. These are realities. This is the way the world works right now. 20% of products produce about 80% of sales. You go into retail, check the shops, they'll tell you this. This is what happens. Clothing stores everywhere. Groceries, food. 20% of customers equal 80% of the revenue. 20% of your clothes will be worn 80% of the time. How many people can identify with that? You look at your closet and you realize that it's those one. I'm like this. I don't fight it. I don't care. It actually makes my life easier. But you think about it. Think about your closet or your shoes, or you have those favorites. Your shoes, your belts, your hats, your coats. You'll wear them. You'll wear 80% of them, 20% of them, 80% of the time, or more. How does this apply to effort and results? 80% of the time, 80% of what you achieve comes from 20% of your time. 80% of the money you make comes from 20% of your activities. A lot of data here I'm giving you. I'm trying to give you some fuel here. Here's what's interesting is we look at causes and consequences in the world. 20% of criminals represent 80% of the value of all crime. 20% of drivers cause 80% of all accidents. 20% of people who get married account for 80% of all divorces. Did you know that 20% of your carpets will get 80% of the wear? Have you ever been in an office and I don't know if you've ever seen this, but here's an example, a brilliant business example. But in commercial applications, does anybody know how they do most people do carpets now in commercial applications, like in office buildings and stuff? Has anybody ever seen that? No? Really? Nobody. Oh, I'm surprised. They do it in squares. So when you buy commercial carpet, they don't come in with rolls. They come in with a stack of squares. And why do they do that? Because somebody figured out we can save a lot of money if we only replace the 20% that gets the 80% of the wear. Tremendous amount of money saved. Here's another one. I don't know if you were aware of this. Years and years and years ago, my mother claims to be the one who came up with this idea, by the way, is they used to paint the lines down the middle of the road. And they'd repaint the lines, and then they'd repave the road, and they'd get potholes, and they'd have to do all this repair. Now, my mother claims that she sent in a letter to the editor or something in the newspaper back in, this would have been in the 60s or something. And this was her idea. She said, why don't you move the line instead of always repaving the same spots and fixing the same potholes? But if you'll notice this, go down the road and notice how the line on the road is off. If you look at one shoulder will be bigger than the other. Why do they do that? Because they figured out, my mom figured it out and told them how to do this. The engineers figured out that if we move the line, then we can move the wear pattern. And we can actually get more mileage out of that asphalt. Isn't that fascinating? So these are some practical applications of how this is working in the world. Your carpets, the road, there's all kinds of other things that are happening too. Your dishes, everything this applies to. 20% of diseases account for 80% of all healthcare costs and resources. Wild, isn't it? It's just in everything. So let's pause for a minute. I gave you a few business examples, but I want you to think about you for a moment and tell me, what are your takeaways at this point in time? What's percolating for you around the 80-20 rule? And go ahead and give me things that are coming up for you in the chat. Just any ideas at all, a little brainstorming. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's no good, there's no bad.
Larissa states my numbers are even lower than the 20%.
Yeah. And you'll find that. You'll find there's this flux. I didn't put it in here, but there's an example. I think it was I'm trying to remember what year it was. It was like around 2006, 2007. I didn't bother putting it in here, but it was the movie industry. So you know that 20% of all movies make up 80% of all box office profits and receipts and revenue. And in 2006, it was actually 98.6%. So what happened was 1.4% or 1.3% of the movies represented represented 80% of all the revenue that was brought in. Just less than 2%. Isn't that wild? So the idea here is not an exact number, but there's a huge imbalance. So we need to be aware of that. So what ideas are coming up for you? What takeaways are coming up for you that you can apply? Think about this. How can you use this information to your advantage?
Well, I guess clarity, like, for coaches, it's important to have clarity about the clients, just as you mentioned earlier, to focus our resources, just to kind of, I feel I need to analyze where the most lucrative clients are coming from and focus on them. So I get better focus and clarity. Beautiful,
Larissa. Exactly. This idea of really knowing, you can never know enough about your audience or your avatar. So really critical, Larissa. That's a bang on point. One of the first places to start, in your business is, how well do I really know them? Now, I'll give you an add-on to that concept is, how can we go about doing that? And how can we apply the 80-20 rule in terms of our conversations? And I'll give you some hints here. When we think about conversations are give and take, back and forth. Conversations comprise statements, ideas, and questions. So how could we use the 80-20 rule to be more effective?
Questions.
Spend 80% of your time asking questions. I am an exerciser. I always have been, due to various personal reasons from my youth and a bad accident that I was in, that I have to exercise every day, or I'd probably be in a wheelchair. When I go to the gym, a lot of guys come in, and women, and they immediately jump on weights or whatever and start doing things, and then they go out. And I feel their pain. I spend about 80% of my time on the floor stretching and doing floor work. It's a different way of looking at exercise. Why? Because that is one of the most effective things that I know works in terms of exercise. That if you change your exercise routine and spend 20% of your time on resistance training and 80% on stretching and core function, you'll get better results. Just an example for you. Okay, any other ideas? What else is coming up for you in terms of the 80-20 rule?
Feel free to open up your mic if you have a comment.
If you want to jump in that, or speak in the chat, whatever works for you. How about time management? Let's come back to time management. How about giving yourself this rule, saying, I'm going to make sure that I spend less than 20% of my time surfing social media or looking things up or playing with my website or whatever. How about I spend 80% of my time, and if you're new to business, and here's a rule, we're going to start to put this in the program, until you get to $1 million, 80% of your business activity needs to be speaking with prospects and clients. People move much too quickly. They flip that around. They spend 20% of their time talking to prospects. What's the best way to learn about your audience and your avatar? Speaking with people, not reading about them, Not going to the next webinar or workshop or downloading the next book and reading it, but actually speaking to people. Take all the pressure off of yourself and them and spend 80% of your time speaking to people and 80% of that time asking questions. Finding out where they're at. What are their struggles? What are they trying to accomplish? And then you know what? When you start to do that, you'll get very good at figuring out who to talk to. And when you are in those conversations, you'll also get very good at figuring out whether they need what you have to offer or not. And you get very excited, and so will they. They'll get very excited and say, I can't believe I found you. This is an amazing conversation. Do you mean you can actually help me solve this problem? And you can go, yes. And they say, where do I sign up? Versus all those conversations where there isn't a fit and we're trying to force it. We're trying to force the square peg into the round hole. I digress. Thank you. Thank you for participating. I appreciate it. So here's the reality. You can't escape this. In every market, there will be some businesses that are much better at satisfying customer needs. You need to be aware of that. Is that going to be you? I hope so. In every market, there will be some businesses that are better at minimizing costs relative to revenue. Don't worry about that until you get your first $1 million in revenue. You can, there's a very good way of looking at this. Jamie's heard me use this example before. What's the best way to maximize savings in business? How can you get the maximum savings in business? Anybody want to guess? No? Nobody's going to guess? Jamie can guess for me then.
Well, I was guessing invest in the right things.
No, that's the opposite. If you think about it, how can I get the maximum amount of savings? How can I save the maximum amount of money on my business? It's kind of obvious.
Don't spend any.
Yeah, don't spend any. Quit.
Yeah.
Close your doors.
Yeah.
So a business that's in trouble, that's not making enough money, and this goes back to my days in, pre-internet days, is the business that's not making any revenue, that's not profitable, and spending all their time figuring out how to get costs. You can't save your way to success. So they're spending 80% of their time, money, and effort on saving money when the real problem is on the other side of the business. It's generating revenue. 80% of your time generating revenue. Don't worry about saving it until you got enough that you need to worry about saving. So where was I? In every market, there will be some businesses that generate higher profits than others. And over time, 80% of the market will be supplied by 20% or less of the businesses that are appealing to that market. The car industry, in the automotive industry, I can't remember what the number again, I don't have the stats on here. But when the automotive industry started, I think there was something like 900 manufacturers in the United States making cars. Not hard to believe. It's amazing, eh? Computers. I don't know. Those of you who I'm dating myself, but I remember, when the first microcomputers came out, and the lab at the university that I went to had this microcomputer lab, and we had to have had 12, 15 different brands there. Everybody was into it. Sony had a computer. All the Japanese companies had computers, and a whole bunch of others. There were tons of American companies. Osborne was a big one. That was going to be, I remember in the day, Osborne was going to be the computer that everybody had. Osborne went bankrupt like 3 years later.
Gateway.
Yeah, Gateway was one that made a run on it. And then, of course, it all settled in. What happened? IBM dominated the market and then blew it, interestingly enough. Yeah. So over time, 80% will be supplied by 20% or less of the businesses. Existing and new businesses will seek to innovate and obtain a larger share of smaller but defensible part of the market. Why is this important? It's important because you need to realize that you're in a space and you have this amazing opportunity. It's called the internet and it's called the world. It means that when it used to all be about local business, you had a finite number of clients that you could actually work with. But now we have this opportunity to segment and chip out pieces of the market and to dominate them. So think about when you used to go out for a cup of coffee, you'd go to a diner or you'd go to a restaurant. Nobody ever thought that there could be a coffee shop that did nothing but serve coffee. I love to think about when I remember when kernels came out. I think, whoever thought that, if you go back now, again, I'm dating myself, go back 40 or 50 years ago and say to somebody, one day there will be stores that sell nothing but popcorn. You'd think they were insane. But this is what happens is markets divide and then they subdivide and they niche down, they become smaller. Anyhow, again, I digress. But the important part here is realize that there's the players who want to really be successful in any business are always innovating to get a larger share of a smaller part. And so they're looking for that ripe little piece, the 80-20 game. They're looking for that piece of the marketplace where they can dominate. 80% of the profits from the entire market will reside in 20% of the niches. 20% of businesses, 20% of customers or clients, 20% of products. Now, I want to talk a little bit, just for a moment, I want to pause here for a minute about the 80% of the entire market will reside in 20% of the niches. Now, this goes back pre-internet days, and it applies to the internet as well. And those of you who are in our program are going to know this, but name a few of those. What are the biggies? Can you name a few of those niches? Think about what people are always striving for. So what's one of the biggest pains that people have?
Health.
What are people always talking about? What are people always complaining about? Why are you here on this call?
Money, finances.
Money.
Money.
Money. How to make money, how to save money, how to get a job. All of those things fall into the money market. Yes, Johnny got it. Health and beauty is another one. So anything to do with pain, suffering, health, wellness, weight loss, fitness. Think about how long these industries have been around. These are the big players. And I'll ask for a third one. We won't go any further, but there's kind of three biggies. There's a third one.
Or maybe like relationships.
Yes.
I was just going to say.
Yay, we got 100%. Yeah. So relationships. Yes. So love, companionship, partnership, marriage, divorce, dating. Those are the three biggest niches that never seem to go away. Why? Because the problems never go away. Everybody's always looking for a solution in those niches. So think about those and then think about subsets of that. So I'll give you a direct example of that. One of our clients was a doctor, yet did some training and had a particular passion and interest in marriage counseling. So he took the relationship niche, and then he and she, it was a partnership, a couple, and took a segment out of that and said, let's work on relationships with, I don't think it was specifically surgeons, but with
medical
physicians.
doctors,
with medical doctors. Great little sub niche to drill down into, and a very clever one, because we know that statistically those professions are high stress and do tend to have a higher incidence of divorce.
And
so
he was a medical doctor. He was a medical doctor too, so that he was able to speak their language.
Yeah, so he was able to speak their language. So he knew, he went after what he knew, and he knew that there were a lot of people that he'd worked with through his life that were in a lot of pain, that were on their second, third, fourth divorces. And if he could help heal those relationships, then he found himself a segment of the market to work on. So there's an example of that subset. Another example maybe in the healthcare niche would be, rather than just weight loss, maybe I'll give you a direct example. My wife and I opened up a fitness center in 1992. And this was kind of before it was popular. And one of the things that we did was we opened up a women's only fitness center. So we sectioned the market. Everybody else had health clubs and gyms. As a matter of fact, out of the 80s, they were the big dating platform. That's where they were the nightclubs of the 80s. In the 90s, it shifted, and we opened up this niche, which was women only. But then not only that, but we targeted pre and postnatal women. So instead of going after the dating game, the 18, 20, 25-year-olds that were all about hard bodies and attracting a mate, we actually went after the segment of the market that were worried about how their bodies were going to look after they gave birth. So prenatal classes, classes with baby, postnatal classes, how can I get my body back? How can I turn, instead of worrying about attracting a mate, how can I adopt functional fitness? So in other words, how can I carry a baby and make dinner and do these things all at the same time? Functional fitness. And that was how we took that niche and divided it. Ended up with 3 different businesses out of that. So there's an example. So I could go on and on and on. But I want you to think about these things. This is what I'm trying to do, is get you thinking about your own avatar, your own audience, your own product, your own solution. The most profitable businesses tend to have the highest average profit per employee. This is as you grow your business. But the profit generated per employee, and I put in here, or outsourcer, tends to be very unequal. About 80% of profits are usually generated by 20% of the employees or outsourcers. And outsourcers are an important word, because as you grow your team in the space that we're in, chances are you will work with virtual assistants and outsourcers a lot more common than actually needing to or having to hire an employee. It's a wonderful way of working. By the way, and a great way to build your business. We can talk to you more about that as your business grows. The principles of unequal effort and return therefore operate at all levels of business. Broad markets, niches, products, customers, employees, outsourcers. It affects everything that we do, everything that applies to our business. So I've opened up your pathway here, and now I want to kind of bring you back to the micro. What's in it for me? How does this apply to me? And this is going to take us to, as I promised, your gift and my challenge to you. So what we want you to do is in the chat, put in, if you want this workbook, we want you to put 80/20 in the comments section. If you're one of our future dated people who we're talking to in the future, then put in the comments section. Find a place around here to communicate with us. If you need to, send us an email or give us a PM somewhere, and we will send you this PDF workbook, which will educate you, help you, give you some ideas. So there's some questions in here to help you layer things. And I'm not gonna give you too much of a peek behind the veil. I'm not going to show you the pages, and it's also going to give you some work that you can do to monitor so that you can figure out where your 80/20 is. Powerful little workbook. And those of you who are working with us full time and in our program, you know what's in there. So I encourage you, if you haven't visited, by the way, I still do it. And again, I failed to, I don't want to, I won't, I don't even know where I've got it now. Here it is, in my second drawer. So I still do this stuff. So when I find myself concerned about my productivity, that's all I'm going to show you. I use that workbook. So this is something that is an exercise that you can pull out and do, particularly if you feel like, I think I'm wasting a lot of time. I think I'm spinning my tires. I think I'm just going through the motions here. And you'll know it. You'll know it because you'll feel it. You'll feel it somewhere in your body that this is not productive time. And I want to put a little caveat here, is there's a difference. And this is why I want you to tune into your body and what you're feeling. There's also, you'll know, those of us who work with us, we talk about something called the slight edge, which is this idea that there's a buildup, as we do our one things on top of each other, one on top of an edge, we're building momentum, we're building a foundation. That's different. That's very different. And you'll know it, you'll feel it. That's a lot different than just surfing the internet. That's a lot different than looking for a quick fix, if you will. So you'll know it. You'll know it. And you know what? Sometimes what we need to do is we need to start small. Sometimes we need to allow ourselves, give ourselves permission, even build it in. Say, you know what? I'm going to build in 20% waste. I'm going to allow myself an hour out of every day to be frivolous, to watch TikTok videos or whatever. And then to set a goal for yourself to chip away at those and to make those less and less and less until they disappear from your life. Remember, you're getting the results you're getting because of the things that you're doing. And the things that you're doing come from who you are. So in order to change who we are, our being, we need to change our behaviors. This is one of those examples. If we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to keep getting what we're getting. So we need to get into this and start to chip away at our behaviors. And the 80-20 is one of the best places that you can start to look at your behaviors in terms of saying, what's getting me the most bang for my buck? And start to get rid of the things that aren't and start to focus on those things that are. So I'm just going to finish up this part of the presentation. For those of you who aren't clients right now, if you're ready to implement a proven step-by-step method for creating a coaching business that earns you a full-time income, and not just a job type income, but an exceptional full-time income, doing what you love without being stressed, overwhelmed, or even bogged down doing things that aren't getting you the results you really want, then book a time to chat. And you can do that by going to upskillyourbussiness.com/game-plan. And we're happy to have a visit with you. And just like I said in the talk, we're going to ask you questions and we're going to find out if we can actually get you to a different place. Sometimes we have conversations and we get somebody to a different place just in that conversation with one idea. Sometimes it turns into a whole bunch of ideas and we end up working together. That's cool too. So if you want to learn more about that, you can put learn more as well in the chat or the comments if you're seeing this at a later time, and we'll reach out to you and give you a link. And we promise, we're all about getting to know you, asking you questions, and figuring out if we can get to a better place. We're not about slippery sales tactics or pressure or anything like that. So do let us know if you want to talk more about that. And that brings us to our conclusion here, which is any questions or comments. Again, I've lost my clock. It's buried underneath one of my windows here, but I think we're probably coming to the top of the hour.
Yeah, it's 50 after, or 10 till the next hour. Yeah.
Yes. So happy to open up the mic, or you can put comments in the chat or questions in the chat, anything at all. And then we're going to transition in a few minutes, as we always do every week, where we go to our exclusive client only call. And those of you who are clients will stick on the call and we'll dive right into whatever pressing issues you have. But generally, right now, we're open mic. And if anybody has any questions or thoughts or comments, please chip in. Natalie, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Lots to think about. Keep working. Keep putting stuff in the group, your comments. I hope you're getting my responses and Jamie's comments, and keep working on it. Okay. Thanks, Natalie.
Thanks, Natalie. Anyone else have questions, comments?
Well, I have a good question, and let me know. It may be a conversation for that, that may happen after I, book that call. But my challenge was kind of like chicken and egg. I'm still figuring out a narrower niche. So yes, I'm a career coach / leadership coach, and a leadership workshops delivered, kind of development. So, and exactly, I like, Mark, how you said, talk more to people, to potential clients, to figure out their pain points. So for me, it was even to approach either business owners or presidents or HR executives, you need already to have something behind you, some kind of a program. So in order even to ask those, why are you asking? Like, what can you offer? So for me, it was even just to start asking questions was hard because I did not have clarity. And I'm still trying to figure out, maybe I should be like a leadership development coach for fast growing companies, because that I noticed a trend, So my question would be, what do you recommend as the first step, like baby steps? How should I approach potential clients to assist me with clarity, about their pain points?
Yes.
I don't know if that makes sense what I said.
It does. It does. It's a great question. What I would suggest is this is so common, is most people, like again, the 80-20, it's probably about 98-2. 98% of people rush to market too quickly. So they think they have a market and they think they have a solution and they rush to market. And then, so that puts them into selling mode where they think they have to push their solution on people. So what I would suggest in terms of applying the 80-20 rule is that we spend 80% of our time in that research phase. It's usually flipped. People spend 20% or less in the research and development phase, and they'll spend 80% trying to plug their product. Flip that around. So before speaking to people, I agree, you need to have more clarity. And there's a couple of things, and I can't cover them all here in this call, but I'll give you a couple of tips. First is you want to go into kind of looking at what you know, your strengths, where you have knowledge, if you will. And then you want to look at, so that's the internal work, the inner work. What do I want? Who do I like? Who do I like to work with? What kind of people do I like to work with workaholics and help them become, less workaholics? Do I like to work with people who are open and are balanced? What are those things that resonate with you? So do that inner work, start to figure out that. Then start to look at and do some research around the market and do some reading and studying and let your inner knowing, your intuition start to guide you where you'll start to go, oh, I'm starting to see some trends here. Wow, this particular segment of the market, these types of people, these types of industries, these types of businesses, I'm really being drawn to them. And look for commonalities in that. And you're looking for the marriage between the two, right? And it typically will happen. The reason you're feeling excited and pumped up when you start to read certain things and you start to do your research is because you have the solution. You're saying, oh, I can help that person. And so you're looking for trends and you're starting to figure out what is that 80-20 rule in there? Who are those people that I can help? What's the 20% that I actually can help? And the 80% that don't quite fit. So we do that by doing research, by reading, and there's great resources online, beginning with Google. Google is your friend. So start by, plugging in a question, a problem, and see what comes up. Just start looking at results that are coming up. Then go to certain forums like Reddit and Quora and things like that. There's some great Q&A type forums out there, and look for questions that people are asking, that they're looking for solutions. And it's amazing when you do this. You'll start and you'll find, I think Johnny could verify this because he and I had this chat a couple weeks ago, that you'll be going down, and I've done this many times, is you'll go down and you'll find somebody's asking exactly the right question. You get all excited. I know Johnny shared one with me about a week ago and said, holy cow, this person is exactly the person I want to work with. They're asking exactly the question. And you'll find that as you do your work. And then you'll start to take that, and then you start to have the conversations based on that. You'll look for people that are like that. So why do we get resistance from people? They're too busy. They don't want to talk to us unless we have a solution or whatever. We're basically talking to the wrong people. So think about, those people that are posting questions, that are looking for solutions. That's, again, a lesson in the 80-20, where we often spend our time focusing on the 80% that are sitting there like this, that don't want to hear anything, and pounding and chasing and pushing, instead of the 20% that are looking for answers. They're putting questions out there. So we could start conversations that way too, and not be offended by it. Again, like that, learning to love the no's. Ask 10 people, would you be open to having a conversation about this? 9 of them will say no, piss off. I don't want to buy anything. And one will go, sure, I'll talk to you about that. And then just talk to them, ask them questions.
And if I can jump in here too.
Get good with your questions. Get good at, do the homework first, so you're asking good questions that then stimulate the conversation, that somebody leaves that conversation going, wow, am I ever glad I talked with you? Yeah. You really got me thinking. And asking questions is a way to get people thinking, not making statements. Yeah.
Well, thank you. That was brilliant, Mark.
Good. I hope that helps. Yeah, and we'll look forward to talking, and you'll probably talk with Jamie first, and then I'll look forward to talking with you as well.
And I was going to say too about oh no, I'm sorry, Lisa, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying thank you for the wonderful session, and of course answering my question. Appreciate that.
You bet.
And I just wanted to comment on what you mentioned too about having something to sell, having your program. So we see this as a common kind of mistake, if you will, is that people they go ahead and build out a whole entire program and they don't even know who's going to want it. Like it's cart before the horse, we talk about a lot. So don't worry about like, I've got to have something to sell them. That's not your goal at this moment. So
Yeah. There's an old story about, and we need to transition here. But there's an old story about build a better mousetrap. I'll have to do the research and find out if this story is myth or real. But that way back when somebody decided to build a better mousetrap and they put all their time and effort into creating this amazing mousetrap. And then they went out and nobody would buy it. And why? Because the little piece of wood with the spring on it was working just fine. And so nobody had a problem. And this is a lot of coaches get this idea in their head that they've got a solution, and then they run around trying to find a problem to fit the solution. Again, it's the opposite. Spend 80% of your time finding out what problems people are having, drilling into those. So that's saying people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. The way you show you care is by asking their questions, helping uncover those problems that are really stirring deep down inside. Then they're open to a solution. Yeah. And on that, we really need to go. So we're going to transition to our client only call. Larissa, thank you for joining us today. And Natalie too, I know you're gone, but if you watch the recording, I appreciate you being here as a visitor as well. And we'll look forward to talking with you.
Thank you so much. Again, appreciate it. Thank you for all the support.
Pleasure.